Well, the trend says I should be perfect, not scared, not anxious, not nervous, and should have no technical issues whatsoever. That's not exactly what happened today. Everything opposite happened. Scared, anxious, nervous, crazy, politely screaming at my ISP, and a lot more. Because even if I wanted, I had no choice to follow the trend of perfectionism. So, talking about trends, this is the first episode, the premiere episode of Not Just Lip Service, because we don't believe in just talking and walking away. We believe in aligning our words with our plans with our actions. We are not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but we do our best to try and be as authentically yet consistently available and present as possible. However, almost everybody I know is following some or other trend, is anxious about something they need to copy and be like someone who is trending, who is a prominent influencer to get successful like them. But the question is, can I be successful if I follow somebody else's ways? Um, I think I can bring my value and my knowledge if I just remain me. And I can be truly confident and proud of who I am because I know what I'm talking about. But when we don't do that, what happens? When we follow trends blindly, what happens? Comparisonitis, self doubt. And in my case, I've been to a stage where it led to self hate. I forgot that I had value to offer. I forgot that I am good enough. Instead, I compared myself to everything and everyone else and thought, why am I even trying? I'll give you one example, and that's the disclaimer today as well. You must be hearing background sounds. No, no gunshots happening. It is one of the Asian festivals, which is quite noisy. And no matter where in the world you are, if you live anywhere where we have Asian community, we people are noisy. That's all I'm gonna say. So the question is, do we try and compare ourselves? Do we try and follow the trends to be successful? Do we try and follow the trends to get the right amount of likes, right amount of engagement? But the question is, what is the right amount of likes? What is the right amount of engagement? And why do I need it? Which is where I'd love to introduce you to my co-host, Joanna Robon. Hi, Joe. How are you going?
I'm going really well, thank you. And I couldn't help but recognize as you were talking about some of those things, how it really resonated with me. And there are some key differences and some key similarities, and we're still hearing the fireworks in your part of the world. But
Yes.
one of the things that I really recognize is that as an introvert, and I don't know whether I would classify this as a trend or not, but one of the things as an introvert is the pressure that I have felt to comply with the bias towards the extrovert ideal, because that's what business and society seems to want. Now, as I say, I don't know that I'd go as far as to think of it as a trend, but it's a pressure that most introverts feel. And I know you're going to be looking at trends from a very different perspective, from kind of social media, from social media strategy. And I will also talk about that because as a small business owner, I do need to be visible on social media. I need to be out there talking about my business. But as you said, as part of your introduction piece, I guess, I have realized that I need to do it my way. So you won't find me dancing on TikTok, for instance, because authenticity is important to me, and I can't show up credibly and authentically if I'm trying to do something that is so clearly not aligned with me or my audience.
That's it. However, there is this happening everywhere. And one of the things that I will talk about is fear of missing out, the so-called FOMO. First thing, let me say this, Joe. I absolutely do not like all these abbreviations that are coming out, and then even trying to understand these abbreviations like what's FOMO, what's JOMO, what's COMO, and all that. That what have we lost the art of just using plain simple English or whichever language we talk in? Is that a trend now that I have to have an abbreviation before I start talking? An abbreviation that my fellow human beings may not know. So
Yeah.
it's, you talked about dancing on the TikTok, and that's something I love dancing. You know that. I
Me
do not
too.
start.
Me too.
I don't start my day without dancing. I changed the whole setup so I could dance every day.
Yeah.
But I don't see myself as dancing for TikTok, because when it comes to my business or when it comes to my skill, dance has got nothing to do with it. So why do I need to follow that trend to be acceptable? I don't understand.
And I think this comes back to something that I said very early on in part of, I suppose, when we were starting to talk about this and promote it, in that for me, there's a real paradox here, especially for introverts like me, because most of us would prefer not to be in the limelight. And yet, as a business owner, I have to be in the limelight, which is why I have to find my own way of doing that. And then if I force myself to then be in the limelight the way someone else, some potential guru says I ought to do it, and you're right around the abbreviations, it's then about actually, what am I compromising? And typically what I'm compromising are my values and what I hold dear. And I can imagine that you eye rolled in a particularly dramatic way, Szebastian, when I talked about kind of gurus wanting us to do things a particular way.
Well, as you talk about eye rolling, I can tell you this: the moment you say guru and experts, my first reaction is a big eye roll. Because, and I think it's so big that my eyes probably go back in my head and travel the world and come back and then feel dizzy. Because there's one thing I believe in, Joe. The day I start calling myself an expert, that means I'm refusing to learn more. I'm saying I don't need to know more. I don't need to learn more. And whatever I say is true. That sounds a little bit narcissistic. And that sounds a little bit like all those controversial people I would rather not go into. But here's the thing. You have, just before the show, we were talking about, being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. Now, I never, until you said to me, I initially did not see it as a different thing. But you do have a perspective on that. So how are they different for you?
Thank you for raising that, because I have felt for a long time, and I've been criticized and kind of slightly ostracized actually for having this view, and I'm known for having contrary views, so I don't mind that in a way. But actually I recognize myself, so like you, I never want to be an expert, but I do recognize that I'm an authority on the work I do around enabling introverts to flourish, around shifting the bias towards the extrovert ideal that exists in education and organizations. But I'm not an entrepreneur. And I'm tired of what I do consider to be a trend, that anyone who is a small business owner who's potentially set up on their own must automatically be an entrepreneur. I'm not. And I'm very clear about the fact I am a small business owner, and I set up my small business with a very clear purpose and with a passion and a mission that I'm going to accomplish through my business. Whereas for me, an entrepreneur is someone who is constantly spotting gaps in the market and setting up a business to do that and scaling it and then doing something else. So that's not me. I am not somebody who is constantly looking for the gaps and filling them. What I'm doing is I am a heart-led, purpose-led small business owner. And I refuse to buy into the trend of anyone with a small business must be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I not only agree with that, the reality is so many of us, so many of us are focused on how many people are engaging with me, how many people are liking me, what is my stats. So the question is, as a business owner, is my priority who is liking me, how many people are liking me and engaging me? Or this is where I strongly differ as whether I'm a business owner or an entrepreneur, I have I have one thing that's common between the two. Who am I serving?
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, as you just explained, as an entrepreneur, maybe I'm looking at, okay, what am I doing right that will make this successful so I can create another business, another business, another business. But as a business owner as well, I need to look at who am I serving?
Yeah.
How can I serve them? The biggest thing, what is happening is, let me just say this, and I say this with respect. I don't give a, about metrics and analytics and engagement. I always say if one person likes my content, that is a million likes for me. When they come back and say to me, even after 3 years, I saw you on that day doing this, and you said that, and that made a difference in my life. That's a million likes for me. I don't need more.
And I'm glad you said that, because I had an email just 2 days ago from somebody who took my introvert quiz nearly a year ago now and shared something quite personal with me. And I haven't heard from them since. And then they sent an email to say that one of my recent shows had prompted them into action, which is what this show is all about, not just lip service, is saying it's no good us just talking about it. We need to get to the action that moves things forward. But they came back and said that a show of mine that they watched prompted them to action, and the whole thing is resolved now. And I hadn't heard from that person for nearly a year. And I don't know if they were one of the people who liked my stuff. And like you, I'm not particularly interested, especially as one of the trends and my message inbox is full of organizations who will buy me likes, who will buy me subscribers, who will buy me followers. All I've got to do is pay them. I'm not interested. What I want is people, as you said right at the outset, who are genuinely impacted by the work I do. And if that's just one or two people, every time we do something like this, my heart is full. My heart is full.
And you know what, Joe? It's never one or two people, because when you change one person's life, you're changing lives of everybody else who believes in them, everybody else who listens to them, everybody else who pays attention to them. That is going beyond the lip service and actually making a change on the ground that helps people be better, do better in their life, be seen, be heard for what they really want to.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really do not like about trends is when we follow these, I'm not going to name the brands, but when we follow these short form videos, we're trying to imitate a music or a skit or something, even to describe my service or my business. I am investing so much time and energy in pretending to be somebody I'm not to sell my message. What if I just focused on what my message is, what I'm really good at, and how I can help you? So I have to say to people, stop creating content to please people, to see how many people are liking you. Check every 5 minutes. Have I got 100 likes? Have I got 200 views? Have I got 3,000 views? And then let me also talk about creator economy. All these big brands are paying you to be a successful creator. Great for whomsoever it works. But that is, I is not something for you and I. I'm not here to be a digital creator or an influencer. I'm here to find the right people I can truly work with and help to transform their own journey and everybody else who is being served because of what the transformation they experience, right?
And that's something that you do particularly well as a strategist, and working as you do with kind of social media, but more than that, and with the, I have to say, the brilliant team that you've attracted. And I am going to use that word deliberately, because I think that's the thing about being authentic. When we stop, so when we stop doing the kind of posts and actually show up as who we really are with our message, we attract the right people, both to be clients, but also in your case to be team members who work with your clients, etc. And I think it comes back to that authenticity is at the heart of it. And if let's be honest, if a trend works for you and it does fit with your personality and aligns with your purpose and is aligned with what your ideal audience is going to respond well to, then fill your boots. I have no qualms about that. But as you just finished with, you and I, that's not the way we're going to attract our ideal clients, because my ideal clients prefer things to be a bit calmer, prefer things to be things that they can take time to think about and respond to, not be entertained with.
Absolutely. And the thing is, as you were saying, at the end of the day, if I'm really serving people, if I'm focused on what difference I can make, I will attract the kind of people who align with the values I have. I will attract the kind of people who believe in what I'm doing, whether it's team, whether it's clients, whether it's friendships, whether it's relationships.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I know only one simple thing, Joe. If I'm authentic, if people can see me for who I am, they are going to come to me for who I am. If I am pretending to be somebody else, they may be attracted to that, but as they spend time with me, they will see who I really am. They will experience what is behind the mask,
Yeah.
and that will actually disappoint them. That will actually not only make them walk away, I think they will walk away feeling betrayed, feeling their time was wasted.
Yeah.
And I think I will not only lose a person, I will lose a reputation. And the bigger than that is everybody they talk to, the first thing that will, it's my assumption, will say is, oh, this person is a fraud.
Yeah.
So what's the point of, don't we already have enough imposter syndrome and self-doubt to deal with every day?
And if we just kind of recap a little bit about where we've started with this, it's very much about how, we are surrounded by trends, some of which are going to work for us, some of which aren't going to work for us, some of which are going to work for us with the right clients, some are not. But the whole, making the whole checking whether we've got enough likes, whether we're measuring ourselves on that as opposed to the impact our work is having, is actually where we need to start to move this on from now, and start to think about, potentially what impact does following trends have on you, or has had on your clients that you've noticed, Sebastian?
I guess the first thing that anytime comes to my mind when we talk about people trying to follow trends, I call it imitation. I call it copying. The first simple thing that happens is you're investing all your time and energy to pretend something you're not, which means you have to learn the way of somebody else. You
Yeah.
have to learn the way to, you're constantly comparing yourself. You're not being you, you're comparing yourself. Am I doing it like them? Am I being shown enough? Am I standing the right way? Am I speaking the right way? What, every time you don't get a result that you're expecting, because what you're expecting is, if Sean is getting 1,000 likes a second, you're expecting those likes to come to you. Now, when those likes do not come to you and you have 10, 5, 100 likes compared to the 1,000, the first thing that comes to you is, I'm not good enough. I'm
Yeah.
not doing, I don't know what I'm doing. The biggest thing is, what winds me up about following the trends is you walk away from why you actually started. And I'm not just talking about social media. I'm talking about any kind of trend or, you know, I'm not saying it's a bad. There's fashion trends, there's everything. But
Mm.
again, to me, if I look at fashion as well, to me, fashion is what I feel comfortable in, what I feel good in. What if I look at the mirror and if I what I'm wearing, if it makes me happy, that's my fashion, that's my style, right? So I think the biggest frustration that I face with the trends is that people, including my own clients and my friends, people I know, they come frustrated and say, I'm doing everything that that person is doing, but I'm not getting the results that I'm supposed to get, because you forgot why were you trying to follow that trend. You were following that trend because you wanted your service or your skill or your expertise per se to be recognized, and so that you can work with the right people or for the right people who are interested in that service. But now you're so lost in trying to keep up with being with certain trend that you forgot. It's almost like, I sort of, sometimes when we go to the kitchen and we forget why did I come here. To me, I went to the kitchen because I was hungry, and then I go to the kitchen. I'm like, why did I come here? Because I'm so distracted. I am
Yeah.
so lost in something else that I forgot why did I actually got up and walk to the kitchen.
If we just follow that line of thought for a moment, I think pretty much everyone in business knows that they have to start with really understanding their why. And the person I always talk about, I'm not going to say his name here, about who we often think about when we think about our why. But I think where we start to lose ourselves is where we compromise who we are and don't follow our how. So that's when the trend becomes a problem. When I'm following somebody else's how, I know my why, I know where I want to go, but rather than forging my own path with my own how, I think I have to do it somebody else's way. And I think that's where we start to then forget why we've gone to the kitchen and forget what we're about, because I really have lost that sense of what my journey is and the journey that I'm taking my particular clients on. So for me, it's yes, know your why, but then get clear on your how and be consistent with that. Don't be flitting around all over the place following the trends. And that's part of the problem with trends. 1 week it'll be one thing, 1 week it'll be another, and people will just go, actually, what are you all about? What are you doing? So for me, finding my how and being clear about and consistent with that is really important.
See, for me, the biggest thing in what you just said, the biggest takeaway is, when I am constantly trying to follow trends, I'm struggling to keep up with the trends. Remember, we are 7.5 or 7.6 billion people, and at least 1/10 of that is right now on social media, is right now creating something on, digital platforms, on websites, on everything else. How many people will I follow? And the biggest thing that I would say is, in following these trends, am I actually forgetting whether they align with me or not? If the trends do not even align with who I am, as we were just talking in the beginning, I love dancing, absolutely love dancing. I love singing, but I will not even put my enemy through my singing. So I'm not going to follow the trend and lose my friends if I start singing, because they will need a new set of ears, which is not possible. And jokes aside, the thing is, in trying to follow the trend, we're walking away from what we really want to do. and we're walking away from what are we aligned with. If what I'm trying to do doesn't align with who I really am, doesn't align with what I can do really good for you, you know what's going to happen? The people are going to see through that I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. They'll see my frustration because I'm not able to copy you the way I should have. And the biggest thing that will then happen is I will start questioning my own worth. I will start, my confidence will plummet because I will think, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't know how to do this. How come somebody 10 years younger than me is doing much better than me? What I'm forgetting is they are being sold for something different. And I'm going to say this, Joe, we were talking about this offline. A 6'4", blonde hair, blue eyes, chiseled guy talking about branding and me talk about branding, same topic, same statement. Of course, he's going to sell more because 90% of his audience is not there for branding. They're there for consuming him.
Yes.
So a lot of people are paying just because they have the money and they want the eye candy. I am not that. So either I can follow the trend or I can focus on what I'm really good at. And the result is people who will be able to see through and beyond the looks, beyond all that superficial thing, they will find a connection that they want to stay with, that they want to work with. And they will find the results because it is now, as you were saying, it is heart connected, it's heart centered. And when
Yeah.
I connect with somebody on a deeper level, then not only I'm serving them well, I will also care for them because I don't want them to fail. I don't want them to have a negative result. So I am not interested in if they're attracted to me. Not everybody is going to be my boyfriend or girlfriend, but I can have a lot of friends. And for that, they don't need to be attracted to me. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. And I've only just thought of this as you were talking about it, but for me, in some ways, it's a bit of a distraction, actually. If I find I'm really attracted to the person and not their message or not kind of how they're doing things, then I probably won't follow through with what it is I'm supposed to be doing because I'm following them and their message for the wrong reason, in a way. So I don't know if that's the way I my get out of jail free card, by saying that actually being, stupendously good looking is a distraction. But for me, I think there is something in that, because what I want to see is real people. I don't particularly want to see the glossy facade. I want to see people who kind of do fall over their words a bit and do look down at their notes, as I'm going to do from time to time, who do have Diwali fireworks going off in the background, and rather than saying, oh, we better not do it today because it's too noisy, saying, well, actually, that's life. And if we're purpose-driven, heart-centered people, we will keep going with all of these things regardless of what's going on around us. And I think the other thing that I want to say about that as an introvert is, having spent nearly 2 decades bending myself so far out of shape that I felt like a pretzel and kind of forgot who I really was, it's so reassuring to have the self-confidence to come back to who I am and just show up fully as me. And I'm not going to be for everyone. I couldn't be. There isn't enough of me to go round to be for everyone, but I am going to be right for those who are connected with my purpose, with my message, and at the right level where there's that real heart connection, I suppose.
Absolutely. And just before we go further, I just want to, if you're just tuning in right now, I just want to catch up you guys on the conversation. What we're talking about today, and team, if you can please put up the banner, we're talking about trends and you. Who is driving who? Are you driving the trends, or the trends are driving you? What we have been talking about so far is how we follow the trends and how exhausting it is and how it takes us towards comparisonitis, self-doubt, and everything. And that's the conversation right now. And the next thing that I want to talk about is Joe, why do you think people feel compelled that they need to follow the trends? I mentioned as we started the FOMO, fear of missing out. In your perspective, why do you think we feel so compelled? Oh, I've got to do that everybody's doing it.
It's a great question, and I'm not sure. Well, I know I don't have all of the answers. I have my perspective, which I'm very happy to share. And part of it comes from my perspective anyway, as a lack of self-belief, in that I don't trust myself enough to know that I can do it my way. I think somebody has a magic bullet. I think somebody has, the best blueprint. I think because they've been successful, that must be the way to do it. And I think there's such an important, a kind of a persuasive sales pitch that some people are using on us, that it actually undermines our own kind of sense of confidence, etc. And the same thing, I suppose, happens in terms of the bias towards the extrovert ideal that I face in business and society and education a lot of the time, in that I lost faith that being who I was enough. So I felt I had to be more like somebody else. And that's why it's important that I become more of a positive disruptor now, and help other people like me see that there are other ways to do this, rather than following the masses and being more like those people. Actually, the more we can play to our own strengths and be ourselves and follow our own path. My good friend Paul, who may or may not be watching this, is a brilliant person for forging his own path. And it doesn't necessarily align with current thinking. And he's kind of proud of that. And that's who and how I want to be about my work. Whether other people agree with it or not is kind of irrelevant. But I need to be confident enough to say, I don't mind what other people say. I don't mind what the critics say about my work. I don't mind even what the kind of trolls say about me and my work. If I know that I'm doing this with the best of intentions and that it's impacting people, that's all I need. So I think this for me is really about having the self-confidence to know that it's okay not to follow those trends. You're on mute, Szebastian.
Sorry, guys. In what you shared, one of the most important things for me is, as being authentic. The thing is, if you in the beginning you talk about how, if instead of following the trends, if you focus on how, if you focus on who you are and how you can serve, how you do what you do, as I said, you're going to attract the people who need your service, who need your voice, who need your guidance. And that is the most important thing. If you connect with aligned people, you are going to, the best thing is the energy. When you're working with aligned people, the energy, the whole experience is so much uplifting, because you guys, the ideas match, the excitement, the willingness to take feedback from each other. And you were talking about trolls and other things. That's the thing. Even in trolls, sometimes just paying attention to my how and what I can do, I might be able to switch the way the troll thinks. And guess what, guys? I've done that. I've literally done that by being patient enough to just listen to the troll and ask the right question, which was my how. I knew how to ask that question. I knew how to change that conversation into dialogue rather than trolling. And the result was that person is a client.
Brilliant.
That person is a client for 5 years now. And that's what I'm talking about. You exactly said, if you know your how, and I believe in, if you know who you want to serve, how you want to serve, what skills you bring in, you don't need to follow trends. You are the trend. And The only people you need to be trained for is the people who align with you, people who need your service, people who, I guess, for people for whom you're filling the void that they're facing in their professional or personal journey, and they need somebody who can guide them through that challenge, right?
Yeah. And I think you're right. And I hope we're going to go on to talk about that in other kind of episodes of this show about how we create our own way of doing those things. Because there are two lessons for me that particularly stick in my mind. And one is those gurus who consistently talk about just trust the process, don't question it, trust the process. Whereas I'm kind of the opposite of that in terms of question everything, have curiosity about everything, because otherwise what you're doing is you're being led kind of blindfold down an alley that isn't necessarily the route to where you want to be going. And the other thing that I've been on the receiving end of is, and I talked about some of the people who try the kind of persuasive sales pitch. And I've been on the receiving end of somebody who tried to shame me into making a decision when I wasn't ready to make one. Because at the end of our conversation, and he is a very well-known person in the kind of the entrepreneurial world, he said to me very clearly, so you don't believe in yourself enough then to invest in yourself in this way. And it's like, that was then a complete and absolute no for me. And I am so proud of myself that in that moment I said, don't do that. We've had a really interesting conversation up until now, but actually what you've just done, and then I talked it through. And I would never have dreamt of doing that. Me, the little introvert, challenging somebody who's a big, well-known guru. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because when I'm clear on my purpose, and when I'm curious enough to be finding my own how, I'm also strong enough and confident enough to challenge back to people.
And I think that's what it is, because you know your how. Because also you very clearly know your why. When you know your why and when you know your how, it's not easy for anybody to distract you from your journey, to take you on a different path. Because I see it this way: when I'm on a different path than I'm supposed to be, I will very soon start feeling frustrated, very soon see signals where I will see that's not what I wanted to do, that's not how I wanted the things to be. And that will make me question, why am I working on this? Why am I investing my time, my money, my interest on something that doesn't feel right? And talking about doesn't feel right, let's talk about the impact it has when we follow trends blindly, when we try and, I can only talk from, again, my perspective. When we try to imitate a social reel, or when I try to imitate one of the things, I see so many marketing and business gurus and experts. And let me say this without saying the names. When people say, oh, I have learned from Mr. X that if you send these 5 emails, you can get $7,000 extra in your income every month. When I hear that, the first thing I ask is, do you know what that person does? And Joe, this is something I really, really believe in. People blindly go, okay, that person is making millions of dollars and everything, but what is he selling? He's literally selling those templates again and again and again and again, which has nothing to do with your business. Has nothing. He has done no research on introverts. He has done no research on a fashion designer. He has done no research on a florist. So how can, please don't tell me that the same template will work for all three. And an introvert who, all I can say is an introvert who has no interest in, let's say, posting, I don't know, live events. I'm not talking about cyber events. I'm talking about live events where you're on a stage with tens of thousands of people. If that person doesn't have an interest in doing that, following a template of how others host a show is not going to help, because my nerves are still going to get the best of me. That's not what I want to do. What I want to
Yeah.
do is want people to see what I can do behind the scenes and make that show successful from behind the scenes, but by not being in front of the camera, right? And my the biggest impact that I see when we blindly follow these trends and when they do not work out, the shame and the guilt that I feel, because I start questioning myself. I start asking, why is this not working? And the first thing that comes to mind is the inner critic rises up and says, oh, you're not good enough. You don't know what you're doing. The question that actually should be asked is, doing what you really wanted to do.
And those were the two words that came to my mind as well, in terms of the impact that it has on me when I'm not being authentic, when I'm following trends, because I think it's what I ought to do. And I'm not a fan of ought or should. So I will always avoid those things wherever I can, when I catch myself in time, I suppose. But the first thing that I experience is the shame of, if even if I do or I don't follow their particular method, then I don't get the results that they promised that I would do, or that I thought I should do. There's that sense of shame in terms of, well, I'm bad because I followed it and I obviously didn't do it well enough because I didn't get the results. Or even I'm bad because I didn't follow that. So of course I'm not going to get the results because I didn't follow their particular way of doing things. And then there's the kind of, the guilt thing of, so I did bad. So I feel guilty. So now I'm going to dig myself a big hole and kind of bury myself for a little while because I did something bad. So that shame and guilt is a very powerful combination. And it's why I love Brené Brown's work so much on both of those things, because they really work well in terms of helping me understand the shame bit, that, I am bad, I'm not enough, or I did bad, or I didn't do enough.
That's right. And the biggest thing is, in guilt, there's another guilt that we actually deal with, that we suffer, is because if I haven't done how I was expecting to do, if I'm not feeling confident, now suddenly I'm questioning if I have served the people I was supposed to serve in the right way. They may not be saying anything, but I will live in the guilt. Oh, I may not be doing the right thing. I may not be serving them well. They might not be happy with me. I'm not good enough a service provider. I'm not good enough a coach. I'm not good enough, a teacher, whichever profession you might be in. It really, really means that I am suddenly talking about, I'm not only just questioning myself, I'm
Yeah.
also questioning my service to people who are happy with me already. So they may not even know, and I'm creating this negative gap feeling. I think that will most certainly bring my service level down. And then what wasn't happening, that will start happening, and they will actually start feeling like, okay, something is missing. This service is not right. This person doesn't feel confident, because it will show.
Yeah.
The question is, Joe, what can we do instead of following the trends?
So, big question. Thanks for asking me the big question at this stage, Sebastian. And it's such an important question to ask, because when they're so seductive, in a way, when the trends are so seductive because they seem to promise, the magic bullet, etc., or the nirvana, wherever we think we're headed. For me, the only thing to do is to come back to who we really are, what we're about, and how we want to go about things, and play to our strengths. And it's one of the things that introverts usually need, unfortunately, quite a lot of help doing, because we've spent years or decades being told that we're not enough, we're not good enough, we need to do things differently, and we need to be different. It's like you need to be a different person almost. So getting introverts to really recognize that actually they have strengths that are valuable, and that if they learn how to own them, articulate them positively, and then play to them, that's the way forward, that gives you the strength to resist the seduction of those trends. What about you?
Absolutely. And I think for me, really, it's not how often I'm posting on social media. It's not how fancy my website is. It is not how do I dress when I go for a public speaking event. It is the value that I can bring. It is the quality that I can provide. It is really about making sure that I'm prepared, that I believe in my own work, that I believe in the research I've done, I believe in my own education, I believe in my experiences. And the biggest thing, I believe in the mistakes that I have learned lessons from, that I understand, okay, when I did this last time, it did not work out the way I wanted. However, what I learned is this, so I can help my client avoid that mistake. And in my perspective, one of that mistake I can help people, look at is, don't bloody follow the trends. Just ask yourself, why am I on this platform? Why? Who told? It's not who told me and what they told me. It's what was the reason I decided I'm going to be on these two platforms,
Yeah.
and then ask, how can I use each of these platforms? It is same thing as you said, Joe. Again and again, I'm going to say how I can help people. What do I bring? What do I have to offer for which they will believe in me, right? Which brings me to a question, and I think we're running out of time, so I want to make sure that we do this right. And guys, this is one thing about this. We don't follow the trend. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to not. I'm actually going to mention that my team just reminded me that we need to wrap up. Otherwise, I think Joe and I need to work and keep going because we are aligned, right? So I think it is about letting other people help you. It is about letting other people support you in what might not be your strength, in what might not be your skill. It is not my skill to watch time. It never has been. But if somebody is guiding me, I'll do that. So Joe, I'm going to ask you this. How can you help people in finding a path beyond the trends?
So the very first thing for me is about whether you're a small business owner, whether you're a middle manager in corporate land, wherever you happen to be, it's about finding your own strengths, knowing the type of introvert you are, because there are many different types of introvert. You can't just lump us all together and assume we're the same, because we're really not. So it's about finding out your type of introvert, really understanding your strengths, and being curious enough to play, to experiment, and to actually to push back, so that what you're doing with the help of someone like me, who's a guide, is find your own path, and then have a guide, me or whoever it is, walk alongside you as you traverse that path, because there will be potholes, there will be kind of steps that are a bit too big to take on your own. But if you have the support of someone, then actually what you're able to do is to really form your own path. And I'm a big fan of enabling introverts like me to become positive rebels. So, whether we end up in the sassy introvert society together, or whether we end up in the frustrated to flourishing program, there are a number of different routes, but it's about being the best version of yourself and playing to your strengths, rather than getting seduced into there is only one way to do things. However, you are the strategist, Szebastian. So what I need to ask back to you is, what is it that you can do to help, and how do you help people not fall into the trap of following trends?
See, the first thing, as you know, I always talk about intention. For me, it is all about intention. So first thing that goes back to, why am I doing what I'm doing? And then how can I help people with what I know? And for me, it is about whether you're creating, whether you're selling, whether you want to, whether it's about branding, whether it's about how to work with your team. As a leader, how can you create and engage in conversation and lead your projects or your intention, knowing clearly, this is what I want to help with. This is what I can do better for people, or I can make people's life better using this skill or this knowledge that I have. And for that, the simple thing that I focus on is, what will I teach them or what will I empower them with that will make their confidence better, that will take them closer to the dream, that will take them convey their message clearly to the right audience. It is not about conveying the message to everybody. My message is not useful for everyone. My message is not meant for everyone. It is meant for a certain niche of people who know that they have a clear service, but they feel underconfident how to present it, how to deliver it. So I'm not going to go and tell my, clients, go and dance on TikTok, start singing. I'm not going to say that. If you're an introvert coach, Joe, I'm going to say, okay, how can you help other introverts find a way to communicate without feeling anxious, to be seen without being ignored, to actually raise hand at the right time and say, no, you missed me. You didn't take my answer. You didn't wait for me. As you were saying, the sassy introverts, sometimes as an introvert, you and I have to actually say, hang on, no, you went around the room. I was processing, you didn't give me the time. So for me, at that time as a strategist, really is the time to guide the people. How can they brand themselves so people know very clearly, okay, that's an introvert. They do have something to say, but they're not going to say it the traditional way. They're not going to scream and yell and keep adding things one after another. They do need to think. They do need to process. Then they will tell you what they need. Sometimes maybe that answer is, and you are the expert in this really, the answer to this is that they don't want to express themselves the way everybody does in the meeting. Maybe they want to write an email, right? Maybe they want to catch up one-on-one and tell you, okay, this is what my idea is. This is what my feedback is. This is how I can help people. So for me, if you are, I really will give you a task. If you're watching right now or whenever you watch this, go and make next 3 posts on your social media. But here is my condition. I don't need these posts to be all in one day. I don't even need them to be all in a week. For me, it's not about how frequently you post. For me, it is about how clearly you know what can you help people with. Go and make those 3 posts in next 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, and come back to me, tag me, or come back to me and say, hey, this is what I posted. What I'm going to do is see how clear your message was. Were you talking to the right audience? Were you actually conveying what you're good at? Or were you copying somebody and trying to be somebody else? And then I will guide you how to authentically, confidently, and without apology share your message in your style. I guess, guys, I can give an example. Joe, it is not your style to have big pictures, to be loud, to be on video every day. So we need to find a balance. We do need to get the message out there, but we do need to find the balance. You like things to be gentle. You like things to be polite. Yet you also like things to be very clear and firm. So I need to go, okay, dancing is not for you, right? So really go and make 3 posts, tag me, and I'll tell you how you did. How can you do things differently, but by being yourself and not following somebody else.
That's brilliant, and thank you for offering that out to everyone in terms of write 3 posts or 5 posts over the next 10 days, whenever it is, tag Szebastian, and he will actually give you some feedback on those posts. So I'm going to take you up on that offer, because I know that's something I need to do. But if I try and pull together some of the strands of, the journey that we've been on just in this hour, we started off by talking about what are some of the trends that are around at the moment, and why we feel compelled in some way to follow these trends. And a lot of what we talked about comes down to the fact that we don't always feel confident to be ourselves. We don't feel confident to do it our own way. We feel that, well, if these people have been successful, they must have the way to do it. Actually, no, we all need to find our own way to do it. And that comes through experimentation, being curious, and playing with some of these things. You've talked, and I absolutely agree with you, about the importance of being intentional. So we need to know our why. We need to be clear on our purpose. We also need to, as I've talked about, know our how as well, so that we know when a trend might suit us and actually when it might not, because it's not that they're all bad, but we do need to know which ones are useful ones to follow. But I think the thing that you've mentioned a lot, that I know we both really believe in here, is the importance of recognizing that businesses like yours and mine are here to serve people. And it's not about self-serving and numbers and likes and popularity. It's about making an impact. And that's how we measure success of a business like yours and mine, when actually what we're doing is measuring impact. And you're right, we're not for everyone, but we are for those people who resonate with our message. And there are enough of those people in the world for all of us. So I just want to say thank you for a rich conversation, Szebastian. And it would be really helpful for those who've been watching live to maybe share their thoughts, share their comments. And if you're watching on replay, then please do the same. We will, of course, check in on those and respond wherever possible. But this is the first in a series of not just lip service. And that's why I particularly love the fact that Szebastian gave you that action of write 3 or 5 posts, tag Szebastian, because it will remain lip service until we take action. So let's go away and get into intentional action. Thank you all. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Szebastian, any last words from you?
Really just take action, dream, but also plan, and then take action on the plan. That's all you need to do, because once you start taking action, whatever might be stopping you, even the small action will inspire you to take the next action and the next action. And just believe in yourself. That's the only thing you need to do. As I always say, dream big and make it happen.
Brilliant. Thank you, Szebastian. And I hope we'll see you all again in the next episode of this show.
Thank you, guys. See ya.